cows, crisis of the week. And so somebody, you'll never guess what happened this week. This person was so rude to me. And you know, you have all this nice, you know, CBT plan and this confrontation, these little activities, and you know, you have people that tend to overpower sessions and talk a lot because they really like to be in therapy. So they're going to be in there, they're going to utilize that whole hour, and you're going to listen to them. And those are easy sessions, but you don't necessarily accomplish a lot and make a lot of progress all the time. So sometimes you get in those situations and somebody says something like that, where I can't make it anymore. And you've got to switch.
It's usually 5 minutes before the session. They drop.
It always is. It's not usually, you know, you watch out for always. No, it always is.
On Friday at 5.
On Friday at 5. Absolutely.
Then you say, where's my supervisor?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do? Do you say, okay, it's 5 o'clock, peace, I'm gonna hit the gym, I'm out of here?
Come back on Monday, I'll tell you to do it.
No. No.
Although I do.
Well, hopefully you stuck it out. Some of the best sessions, I just had a colleague talk to me about this yesterday. She had, and we don't get paid for this, she had a 3-hour family session with, I should just end it there.
Yeah,
No
you only
qualifier.
get paid for an hour, you need to leave.
No qualifier. And yeah, they've really set some rules up on us now. I mean, not, you can't even go an hour and a half. Can't even roll it over to rehab, doing some education. Can't even do it. It's 1 hour. Now you do get some crisis intervention still. Get a couple hours of crisis intervention a month.
And that's if they go to the hospital.
For Medicaid. If they, I would call it suicide, or I would call it, if what we just talked about, if they said they can't be here anymore, then you're switching into a crisis intervention. Just like I said, I mean, you're pushing all of your
So,
plans.
will they pay for that though? Because we were under the impression that they have to end up in a psychiatric facility.
I would bill it, because I would document it well. I would say this person
Taylor.
indicated, this person indicated possible suicidal ideation. I mean, we've done that for 8 years since I've been there, and never had a recoupment on that, because the way that you document it is put it down there. There is a suicidal risk. Use those words, and they can't come back, because that's what that's for. That's a crisis intervention. That person is indicating they're in psychological crisis, and they don't want to be here anymore. If that insurance won't pay for that intervention, shame on that insurance.
Well, really, Taylor?
No, for real.
No, I'm saying, really,
Shame on them.
shame on them.
Yeah.
They won't pay for anything.
Well, we've got huge problems. We can't solve them all today. Okay. What is different here?
That one guy's probably still in the boat.
The guy is saying, look, you guys speed up this process,
You know.
I'm drowning.
You might-
Get rid of all those guys before me. I drowned that first guy. He's down here now.
He's drowned.
He's drowned. So, yeah, we have a life preserver. We have somebody still in the boat.
Still in the boat. Threw him a life jacket so that he could save a lot of people because he stayed in the boat.
How comfortable are folks with this image, with this scenario?
That was
If
good.
he wants to die, he's gonna wrap that.
Shame.
I'm sorry. Just want to be honest with you guys.
Suicidal intervention. Most suicidal interventions, by far, if you show an interest to help somebody, they're gonna, well, by far and away the vast majority. If you show an interest that you're trying to help somebody, they are looking. They are looking. If they weren't, our suicide numbers are outrageous, but if they weren't, there'd be more suicide associated with our practices. They really, they happen, but when people are telling you that, if something that comes out of somebody's mouth, you know, that's a cry for help. That's telling them, I can't do this anymore. By verbalizing that, folks that, you know, commit suicide, that are committed on that plan, that are going to go through with it, probably aren't going to tell you that. But that doesn't mean you don't respond to that person that did, because if you don't, then maybe they go there. Okay? What is different here? somebody threw him a life vest and they stayed in the boat. How safe is the person in the boat?
Very safe.
Person's very safe. How safe is the person in the water? We don't know. See, that's I'm telling you, this is what practicing with your license honestly looks like. What the books, Shay said, well, the book will keep you out of the water, because this is what it looks like. You don't jump in the water, you throw the life vest, you do your skills. And this is especially what it feels like right now with our funding being cut. Because we don't get to spend 3 hours with somebody trying to make sure, plan every little detail. This person's going to be here with you on Monday. This person's going to be here with you on Tuesday. You're going to go to work on Thursday. We don't have that amount of time anymore. So is anybody dissatisfied with this picture? Ethically, if you act like you're on the boat, so when you're thinking these things out, use this metaphor. Am I on the boat? Throwing the life preserver. Or am I in the water? If I do this, am I jumping in the water? How about this picture? How do folks, there's a drowning person out there in the water? Anybody got any different feelings about this picture in relation?
Someone in the boat should be unlicensed and can go get them.
That's true. Use a peer recovery support specialist.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, this guy's like, there you go.
Good luck.
Good luck. I got all these 7 people back here, and the camera crew. I don't think it's camera, but yeah, this looks a little bit callous. You got a lot of people to help. Hopefully, if your treatment teams don't look like this at your agency. sometimes I felt like maybe we all got in the boat too much. Yeah, there's a little floaty. I'll throw that ring. Where's like one of those little pieces of styrofoam there? There you go. Yeah, I think this is important why we still staff, because even if you feel like, yeah, I'm on the boat, yeah, I'm taking my due process, I'm doing my duty to make sure I walk through this in an ethical way, at least to keep my license. Am I really doing enough for that person out there? And that's where you keep asking yourself, because that's the point where we have our humanity. That if something happened to that person, because it will be hard. If you lose somebody, it's hard. It's hard to work through. And when I started, I always told folks when I started, if I lose somebody, I don't know if I can continue practicing. Because when you first start practicing, you can go to school, you can get our techniques, but a lot of it is your heart on what because you don't have a lot of skill yet. You're working through Rogerian, you're working through unconditional positive regard. And that's natural. That's okay to do that, because not everybody, when they first get in the field, in fact, most people don't have a whole lot of skill yet because they're still working
Or
through it.
zero skill. Seriously, do you feel like your education prepared you for what this job really is? And be honest, Taylor. No.
Where you get your skill, we were in a little different boat. The program's a little different. Lee does more supervised.
Yeah, I don't know about, I'm not talking about,
We do
I'm
more.
talking about every program
Yeah.
in the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, it doesn't, when you're supposed to get your skill is the first few years of practice.
Okay.
And which is why I don't agree with, they don't want, or they say that folks under supervision don't do CEU events. I'm glad that the students are here, because the first 2 years I didn't go to one CEU event while I was under supervision. And you know what I learned? I learned from experience. I wasn't real confident in what I was doing. The first CEU event I went to, I felt like I was drinking from the spring. It was like, oh my gosh, where has this been? I could have used this. I was kind of doing some things right, but it was on diagnosing children. I remember it was put on by Ray McCaffrey in Norman, Oklahoma, and he was going through all these different me some of these different diagnoses, and I was like, oh, I can breathe, yes, I kind of did some things right, but yes, and I came back and I felt confident in myself, so please continue to learn. You know, even if you get the best supervisor, that's just one perspective, you know, when you're out under supervision for your licensure. If you're out in the field, find something that you're passionate about, you know, get that CEU. I've had to pay my money for it. I mean, Melanie didn't pay for our CEUs, I had to pay for it. It was pricey, but I loved it, it was worth it. I still use some of that stuff today. So, yeah. So how do you resolve an ethical dilemma? Students that are in Lee's class, how has she talked to you about resolving an ethical dilemma? Consult. Some of the things that we've talked about today. If you can't consult, think about a well-lit room. If somebody else were in this room seeing me do this, how do I feel about that? I felt weird about giving a client $20 for gas. Felt real weird about it. I didn't do it again for her. Maybe one other client. That was it. That was it. How natural. Okay. This kind of sums up what we've been talking about. How natural historically. So now consider human existence on this planet. How natural is the client-counselor relationship? Is it a natural thing?
Really,
Why?
it's naturally, you're not gonna give them money. You wanna pay someone to talk to you.
Yeah, pay somebody to talk, and paying somebody so that I can talk to them.
And the unconditional positive regard. You don't like everyone you meet.
So that's a little unnatural.
Yeah.
Okay.
This kind of fits a scenario, many years ago, 25 years ago, I had a clinical supervisor that was ahead of her time and had tons of wisdom. And in a staffing meeting, she asked the question, I've been counseling about 5 years since. It started out in residential treatment, and this was my first outpatient gig, which was different. And it was also back in the day when I just did substance abuse and really what we knew was a 12-step program, and go to enough meetings, you know, I don't know. And she said, does everybody need counseling? And of course we said, no, counseling. And she said, well, what about the farmers that meet at the quick shop to drink coffee together and have breakfast together? But back in the old days, we had ice cream socials, we had church activities, and her point was, that's where we used to get the support that we need. And also back then, our values were all more similar. We weren't as diverse as we are today. I mean, there's a lot of differences back then and today. But one of the differences is we used to do more of that in our own cultural neighborhoods. So stepping out and what my dad would call putting your dirty laundry out for other people to see is not natural. So from my generation where we are now, that part of it is very unnatural because you're going to see somebody you don't know, you're doing all this paperwork, answering all these personal questions, and you don't have a clue. And you also, maybe, in a lot of my work, you're dealing with somebody that is defensive just by nature, that they may be going to prison, they may be losing their kids, they don't have a clue what's going to happen. And so their initial relationship may be very, very defensive.
So that's, you know, a mandated person to talk to. That's a little bit different. Yeah, that's not, you're going to make me talk.
So I would like to answer that question and say, well, yeah, it's pretty natural. But the reality is, for many clients, it's very unnatural to walk in the first time and go through all this intimidating process and see somebody you don't know.
Yeah, writing down all this stuff.
Yeah. not very natural
Maybe
for most people, for a lot of
50,
people.
60, 70 years ago, it was just go talk to somebody about your problems, or
Yeah.
a friend, or
Yeah.
having a confidant. Didn't pay them.
Yeah.
Well, Taylor, you've done a lot of research, and I know in the last 5 years, Garfield County has the highest rate of severe mental illness in our state. So we're not talking about, I guess when I'm talking, I mean, a relationship, these people are severely mentally ill. And so I feel like it's more natural because they are in dire need of help and assistance and the correct help.
Okay, you guys have brought up good points. So there is a natural side of it, and there is the unnatural side of it is in, throughout human history,
Right.
those people might have been shunned, they might have
Yes.
been outcast, maybe exiled, ostracized from their community. I think in a big degree they still are.
Or just put into a home.
Well, maybe 50 or 60 years ago,
Yeah.
even before that though, hopefully they had enough family contacts, extended family. I think you see this if you do like comparison of cultures, where, we're very scientific minded in our culture, and that's really, we're gonna get into why psychology kind of came to being, why we have a profession. But other cultures, are more traditional, extended family is more important, they're more involved, even in childcare. I mean, I think you're seeing some of that, with a lot of absent parents, in our culture, but, it takes a village, kind of, if you look at more some of the indigenous cultures, it is more that way, and so you get more support. I think that we've isolated a lot of things, and so you folks that bring up, yes, it is natural because everybody needs somebody to talk to, yes. Where it's unnatural is, do you come to somebody's sterile office with a plant, and 3 pillows, and a box of tissue, they're ready to go because the person's gonna start crying? No, that's not how humans have worked throughout the ages. It hasn't been staged, and definitely didn't necessarily mandate it yet.
I think we've evolved to
Yeah,
a different type of environment for counsel.
definitely changed.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Right.
I don't necessarily disagree with that
More and
notion.
more,
I think
This is part of life, yeah, you got counsel, you got an attorney and you got counsel. If you happen to have any money in Oklahoma, you might have an accountant. I've never been there.
Or well, manager, yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's some good things, but in the end, considering all of human history and taking it through an ethical lens, we didn't necessarily have the rules that mandate us that we stay on the boat and throughout a life preserver. So watch your own tendency. Be aware of your own human tendency, and it's because I would say that's a good thing, that you want to do more. But you have a limit to that, what you can do. And that keeps you in the boat, and that keeps your license. Any other questions or thoughts? We're gonna switch gears here in just a minute. Okay. Decent so far? Medium? I see a lot of eyes, I don't see a lot of folks dozing off yet, so.
I'll give you an A plus, A plus.
8? I'll take an 8. I'll take 8 out of 10, that's not bad. I'll take that. I don't know that I want to go too far, because we're going to let's probably go about 8 more minutes and then take a break and get some refreshments, because we're going to move into a little different set of material here. Because, well, you'll kind of see where it goes. So what tells us the difference between right versus wrong?
Our heart.
Our heart. What are the kind of things help?
The law.
Yes, okay.
The morals you were taught.
Culture. Help. Include religion in that. Law. What is the one thing? Why do we practice? What is the ethical standard by which we practice? Why is it that we practice? Why do we want to counsel?
No.
And it makes you feel happiness. you know, helping others makes you feel happy.
Yes.
So don't we all strive for happiness?
We do. The overall, I that's a secondary reinforcement for us. But first of all is the concept of beneficence. So this will be on some of your tests and quizzes and maybe some of your NCEs. And what is beneficence?
Do good.
Yes, you want to do good, bunch of do-gooders. You want to do good. You want to help somebody. That's the concept of beneficence. That's the first principle that we come to the table with when we counsel. I want to help. What can I do to help?
But Taylor,
Yeah.
how long until that slowly starts to kill you? Session by session, for real.
That's why you take
There's not enough vacation.
vacation.
There's not enough, did you say medication or?
I didn't get you.
Okay.
Vacation, medication, consult with peers.
None of that helps,
weekly stuff.
alcohol's all a lie.
We do get burned out.
So what do you think the time frame really is before we're in the mental hospital?
Well, let's see here. I started doing this in 2000, and I can just speak from personal experience. I've done a study on this.
You've never been hospitalized. so that's good.
2016,
Okay.
so not yet.
Not yet?
I have gone through periods where I've been so burned out I didn't want to do this anymore. I kept on trudging through.
Okay.
So, but the overall thing is you should want to help somebody.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it kills your brain.
And I think now we're back to when we started in Fresh and gonna save the world, we were jumping in the water.
Yes.
And through experience and sometimes some burnout, we back off, and sometimes too much. I mean, I think we all have to step away sometimes and take a good look at ourselves. I think that's why we have staffing and clinical supervision and those types of things.
We're gonna.
A friend told me one day, Jane Copeland at LBC has been there for passed away. She was a wonderful lady. I learned a lot from her. And she told me when I started outpatient, she said, Bill, everybody that walks out of your office, and I'm a CADC to this day because I'm stubborn. Not that I don't love education, but I do. And she said, everybody that walks out of your office takes just a little piece out of it. You allow it. If you allow it. And you allow it, before you know it, they're taking you a what? You're a shell. And I think that's that burnout stage where we get so involved in needing to change the world and change people, which we don't have the ability to do, that we just get burned out.
Compassion fatigue. For those of you that want to do more on that, compassion fatigue is well, let's go. No, you're going to do some research. Put that in the search bar. What is non-maleficence? Do no harm, absolutely. And some people step out like the guy that's on the edge of that boat that's looking out. He's in the non-maleficence. Just got to do no harm, so I'm not going to do anything. Non-maleficence, yeah, do no harm. So those are some of our big terms. We talked about how we just now you already got into the conversation. How should each of these concepts guide our practice? But where do we get that? Because this guy that we started with, because I really think on some level he didn't consider it hateful. He considered it, I'm helping her. She's going to hell unless somebody steps in to intervene. So, are these always universal for each one of us? Question. They are. And I've seen people come into counseling with their own theological and religious agenda and try to put it on others. And that doesn't work out. That doesn't work out for them. You have to, if you're going to do that, then you need to be in a church doing Christian counseling, doing some other type of work, but not being necessarily licensed. They do have Christian counselor license